Call Haloyim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachakudash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. So I want to showcase this video from Dabu 7. It says power emergency. Blackout fears erupt as 20 million people in 17 states put on alert by DOE, which is the Department of Energy. So this alert came out yesterday for these 17 states for various reasons, not only the heat, but of course we know, whether they say it or not, these data centers have a huge effect on the grid as well. But you got to wrap your mind around something like this taking place in your state, and really when Jacob's trouble fully manifests, you got to consider this happening across the entire land of America, across all of Babylon the Great. You got to wrap your mind around that, because the Lord can and will do whatsoever he pleases. And if we can think about it, then that means he's already thought about it. And we're going to read the scriptures in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, when the Lord plagued Egypt, ancient Egypt, with darkness. And so if he's done it before, then it's plausible that he'll do it again in this new spiritual Egypt, which is America. So just continue to trust in the Lord and build up your faith in him, because we're quickly entering into a very, very perilous time in which blackouts and many other different perilous, once again, scenarios are going to take place here on earth. So let's check this video out, and then we'll grab all those precepts, Lord willing.
Well, heads up here as we've got a grid emergency now issued. They're saying that they fear blackouts could begin in different states, affecting some 20 million Americans. And they're blaming this on extreme heat. Never mind all the data centers out there sucking all the power up and everything else. But the U.S. Department of Energy has said that they have authorized the operator that is serving parts of 17 states to activate idle power sources in an effort to keep the lights on. Now, some of you may get alerts from your provider saying that you should cut back between certain hours. I can only imagine this is going to get worse over time. And some people just can't tolerate it already. They can't live normal life within certain windows. They feel like they're being robbed of the freedom. Well, this new emergency order covers Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Minnesota, Missouri, and Montana. They say it also includes Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, and Wyoming. So I guess those were added afterwards. They say this is the final step before a level 3 emergency alert, which would trigger rolling blackouts, goes into effect. So this is the last move before literal blackouts start happening. 17 states, that's a lot. It's a big area. There is extreme heat out there right now. I've warned in separate videos, this weather warfare, that these heat domes, engineered pockets, are stronger than normal. Yeah, it's summer, but when you're talking heat indices getting in zones they've never been before and staying there for extended amounts of time, it's super deadly no matter what here. And some people are not ready for it. So this is a heads up here once again.
Yeah, that's it.
For folks that make
and like you said, this is a heads up, and that's exactly why we make these videos as well. But the difference is that through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, we're able to link all these different events to the scriptures, and specifically to end time prophecies. And that's exactly what this is. So now you have this energy crisis going on top of an oil crisis and apparently a water crisis. So apparently the world is running out of water. Meanwhile, you have the straits closed and you have the price of oil increasing. And then on top of that, you got this energy crisis where they're telling you, look, you may have to cut back on, your day-to-day activities. Stop using certain lights around XYZ time. You can only turn them on for a few hours a day. You can only shower for this many times out of the week. And when you do shower, it's limited to 10 to 15 minutes. And then on top of that, we know the scriptures talk about a famine. And so there's going to be food restrictions as well. All these different restrictions are coming, and it's really just an engineered crisis. That's all it is. Because we know Esau wants to bring in the mark of the beast, which is the chip, in order to build his so-called New World Order, in which the entire world is chipped and under his control. So we're coming into the process of Jacob's trouble being fully manifested, while right now we're just in the very beginning stages, and we're seeing how it could fully unravel, right? With these blackouts being a big part of it. So I'm going to throw that away. And I'm going to read this in 2 Ezra 15. It says, "Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt." This is referring to a spiritual Egypt, which is America. "But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm," that's Yahushai, "and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof." So America is this spiritual Egypt where the Lord is going to deliver his elect, and the entire land will be wiped out during World War III. It says, "Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment." The biggest plague is those nuclear missiles that the Most High shall bring upon it. But the main point here is verse 11, where it said the Lord is going to smite Egypt with plagues as before. And that's the biggest indicator of how we know that this is talking about a future, a spiritual Egypt, which is America. Because just like Egypt was that place of bondage where the Lord delivered us in the ancient times, well, this is also the house of bondage where all the Israelites have been gathered and put into captivity, and where the Lord is going to also deliver us. But this time, like the scriptures say, it's going to be an even greater deliverance. So with that being said, I'm going to jump over to Wisdom of Solomon, the 17th chapter. And we're going to read this in the GNT. And I'm going to try to just flow through this chapter, because I want to just read, I'm going to read verse 1 through verse 10. It's 21 verses. I'm going to read verses 1 through 10, and I'm going to try to just flow through it, not interject too much, because what we're going to get into is the darkness that the Lord put over ancient Egypt, which is one of the plagues that he hit ancient Egypt with when he was delivering us. And so just like before, the Lord can do the same thing in these days. So expect it. You have to expect it and wrap your mind around it. And that's why we're going to read this. So Wisdom of Solomon 17 verse 1 in the GNT, it says, "O Lord, your acts of judgment are marvelous and hard to explain. That is why people who had not been taught about them went astray. When lawless people, the Egyptians, imagined that they had your holy nation, the Israelites, in their power, meaning in captivity, they were themselves imprisoned in a long night of darkness." And this is physical darkness. "They lay in their own houses, shut off from your eternal care. They thought that their sins had been secret and unnoticed, shielded from view by a dark curtain of forgetfulness. But now they were horribly afraid, confused, and terrified by ghostly forms or apparitions." Imagine that. Imagine it being completely dark and you seeing apparitions. Verse 4 says, "Not even the dark corners where they lay could protect them from fear." So they were in the corner, because when it's completely dark, you're looking for some kind of comfort. You find a corner, and at the very least, nobody's around you. You kind of get a sense of where you are. But it says not even the dark corners where they lay could protect them from fear. They were surrounded by horrible noises. Grim ghosts with gloomy faces appeared before their eyes, right? Those apparitions. No fire had power to give them light, and the brilliant stars could do nothing to relieve that deathly darkness. Imagine that. Imagine it being so dark, you try to light a fire, and the fire is lit because you feel it. It's hot. You're warm. You touch it, you burn yourself, but you can't see it. That's how dark it was. And people are going to be trying to do the same thing in these days. Backup generators, lighting a fire if they know how to, using lighters, flashlights. It's just not going to work. The flashlight is on. You just changed the batteries yesterday. Fresh batteries. You're clicking. It's not working. Not working. Right? That's how dark the Lord had it. And so it's probable that he could do the same thing, that he will do the same thing in these end days. Who knows? But if it happens, just expect it. And keep in mind that the Lord is going to protect you and keep you safe in that day. You never know what he could do. The elect could be cool in that time. They will be cool, but they could be able to see. You could be able to see properly when this happens. Meanwhile, the rest of the world just has this regular vision. Who knows? I'm just thinking about good, right? Thinking about positive thoughts, because nothing is impossible to the Lord. Verse 6, it says, there was only a dreadful fire, lit by no human hand. So now it's going into a metaphorical fire. There was only a dreadful fire, lit by no human hand, that shone on them. And in their terror, they believed that the real world was even worse than the things they imagined. So the fire happening now is in their own head. What they're imagining, because of how dark it was worse than what was actually happening. But their own mind, their own imagination was tormenting them because they didn't know what was going on, right? The illusions produced by their magic tricks were put to shame, and all the wisdom they had boasted of came to nothing. They had claimed they could drive away all the fears and illnesses of sick minds, but now they themselves were sick with silly, groundless fears, even though nothing dangerous had actually happened. They were terrified by hissing snakes and animals advancing on them. So you just hear sounds and you getting afraid. And so they died, shaking with fear, afraid even to open their eyes, yet unable to keep them shut. Remember, in verse 5, it said deathly darkness. And so the darkness, it was deathly, and it was so dark that they were imagining what could happen, what could be around them, what might take place. And that was putting their minds and their body in a state of shock to where they were just falling over and dying. That's why verse 10 says, and so they died, shaking with fear, afraid even to open their eyes, because you close your eyes and in a sense it gives you some kind of comfort, right? But then it says, yet unable to keep them shut, because at the same time, they wanted to see light. They wanted to see something. They wanted to know something. This is the confusion that the Lord more than likely is going to bring to this place. So expect some type of blackouts and expect more and more plagues and different signs and wonders to hit this place. But at the same time, expect protection, expect miracles, and expect the Lord to guide you in that day when all these things do take place. So Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect of Kol Halayim Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakudash. Shalom.